Hello and good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Bridging Futures, Linking Library Collections and Services to Faculty webinar with Melissa Gentry, Karen Harag, and Bradley Johnston. My name is George Bergstrom, and I'm the Southern Regional Coordinator for the Indiana State Library's Professional Development Office, and I'll be the question moderator for today. This webinar was put together by the Academic Librarians of Indiana's Information Literacy Committee. I'd like to start off the webinar with a few quick announcements. To register for other webinars or other trainings available from the Professional Development Office, please see the Indiana State Library's events calendar, which can be found on our website at www.in.gov/library. This session is about an hour, so you will be eligible to receive one LEU for today. If you're watching the archived recording of this webinar, the instructions on how to obtain your LEUs are available in the video's description on YouTube. Or you can also find those instructions on the Indiana State Library's continuing education site under the LEU policies. I'll now turn it over to Melissa, Karen, and Bradley. Melissa, I think you might be muted.
There we go. I'm Melissa Gentry. I'm supervisor of the Paul W. Stout map collection located on the second floor of Bracken Library at Ball State University. And we have one of the largest map collections in the region, if not the state. I need to advance my slides, sorry. There we go. So J.R.R. Tolkien described his approach to writing stories about Middle-earth. Quote, "I wisely started with a map and made the story fit." He meticulously created a consistent and believable world for his stories, ensuring that the narrative was grounded in the culture, geography, and history of Middle-earth. His maps were storytellers. Exploring the map collection brings a sense of wonder. Users quickly discover that maps are not just for wayfinding. They tell stories using detailed data about destinations that expand our sense of what is possible. The Paul W. Stout map collection includes over 140,000 maps in hundreds of languages of every country, thousands of cities, national parks, rivers, and watersheds, and even fictional places like Narnia, Barbie World, and Tolkien's Middle-earth. It's literally a world of maps. Some of the maps are rare originals, like this map of Eastern Europe that was used at the Treaty of Trianon after World War I to create the borders for the nation of Hungary. The collection also includes over 3,000 diverse thematic atlases that can easily be scanned for use in research papers and presentations. The map collection also acquired a cache of maps that were discovered during the renovations to the Cooper Science Building. The map collection is not a map museum. The maps circulate just like books, and the challenge is getting the maps out of the drawers and into the classrooms across campus, into the hands and papers and projects and minds of students and faculty and researchers as primary resources. I've collaborated on projects with professors devising creative methods of using maps, and more importantly, bringing awareness to maps as important primary sources. And following instructional sessions, I always create some type of activity where the students are required to find a map from the collection or return to the library for even further research. Every spring and fall, the GIS Research and Map Collection hosts a table at the College of Architecture and Planning pop-up library event, allowing students to learn about cartographic resources available for them, well, for their studio projects, but also to play some fun games and win door prizes. It's a chance to interact with the faculty and staff within their familiar confines and collaborate with the team from the Architecture Library, the Building Materials Collection, and the Andrew Seeger Archive of the Built Environment, all located in the College of Architecture and Planning building. In 2005, the map collection began collaborating with the Rinker Center for Global Affairs on programming related to international students. The map collection provides maps for the International Festival that was hosted that year in Bracken Library. And I provide maps every week for the Rinker Center's Culture Exchange program, where students from around the world present about their home countries. Maps from the collection have also been used at numerous community events and programs, like the College of Architecture and Planning exhibit at the Indiana State Fair, a Black History Month exhibit at the Indiana State House, and immersive learning projects related to the Ball State Village area. I've developed lesson plans and projects with Muncie Community Schools detailing how to incorporate maps from the collection into elementary reading programs, and I collaborated with teachers attending the Ball State Summer Civics Academy. And maps are used every year for games and activities at the Ball State Camp Adventure Summer Program. This year, the map collection published an orientation map that was passed out to hundreds of new students, and we hosted walking tours around the Old Quad for the weeks of welcome in the fall. The tour incorporated the collection's campus maps that date back to the 1920s. Since I began working in the map collection in 2001, schools from across campus have incorporated maps into research and learning in the classroom. It's a broad range of program. One example is last week, Laura Golubish's art history students explored maps to analyze how images and artwork on the maps are depicted with different cultures and during different eras in history. In the Department of Geography, Dr. Jorn Simon's geography students are collaborating with the Whiteley Community Council and longtime residents to make maps about the predominantly African-American neighborhood of Whiteley and Muncie. Dr. David Call teaches students in Geography 101 how to read topographic maps to determine how flooding and other factors influence a region's economy. Students from the College of Architecture and Planning, or CAP, use detailed topographic maps as well of remote areas around the globe to plan a site development, creating 3D maps like this one of rice paddies in Eastern Asia. CAP students are also frequent users of the collection's Sanborn fire insurance maps, which are useful tools for studying the history of a specific building. I created a tutorial for using these maps that is available in the library's Cardinal Scholar Depository, and that is used by all first-year CAP students. History students study the past with maps, showing the locations of Native American settlements along the White River, or gas wells in downtown Muncie, or even analyzing discriminatory redlining maps like this one here, showing the neighborhoods. These were used by the realtors beginning in the 1930s. Students in urban planning investigated these redlining maps and their impact on the modern day challenges and so-called urban renewal for research papers. Students in natural resources can witness volatile environmental conditions using maps, like the amount of plastic found in oceans, which is shown in white on this map. And Dr. Amy Gregg's students creatively employed maps to demonstrate sustainable ideas about parks and trails. Students in English classes learn how to use maps as visual aids in research papers and presentations. They discover how rhetorical arguments can be depicted more clearly using maps and can detect demographic trends from a dramatic color pattern. So you can witness on this top right map the pattern where the southern states tend to have higher cases of maternal mortality. Then the students can discuss the outlier states of Indiana and New Jersey. Dr. Laura Romano's English 103 and 104 classes incorporated maps into a writing assignment about their personal experiences. Students created online or static paper maps related to their life stories and the challenges that they have faced, like poverty, gang violence, eating disorders, and achievements celebrated, like discovering one's Inuit heritage, inspirational teachers, coaches, and family members, career paths, or even learning how to surf after moving to Hawaii. Women's and gender studies students learn about women making history and consulted maps about women's access around the world to education, healthcare, and government policies. During Women's Week this year, GIS specialist Lori Stinton and I presented a walking tour of Ball State women's history. The map collection strives to provide maps and atlases that are more inclusive of underrepresented topics and groups, and continually creating new maps that tell a more complete story of the world around us, including biographical maps of women in history, like Anne Frank, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Fanny Farmer, or Harriet Tubman. In 2016, for the state's bicentennial celebration, I created an entire set of over 25 custom maps about lesser-known Indiana history. The maps include stories about the auto industry, basketball, natural disasters, African-American women, movies that take place in Indiana, and yes, even Indiana fashion history. Dr. Dorshell Stewart recommends her elementary social studies service teachers show their young students a map every single week to improve geographic literacy. And she teaches her social studies classroom method students how to create maps that become learning objects for their classrooms. And last year, a visiting cartographer, Brendo Carvalho, taught students from the School of Art and the Intensive English Institute how he makes hand-drawn maps and tasked them to make maps of their own. Brendo recorded a video on map making. So on Thursday, students from Martina Chavo's Intensive English Institute class will be presenting maps they created of their home countries after visiting the map collection and watching Brendo's tutorial. Art professor Rachel Cohn and her students also consulted with Brendo and the map collection. She's been a key innovative partner for university libraries, encouraging unique projects for students to learn about the art of cartography and create their own maps. Thanks to this amazing collaborative work, the map collection has become a depository for original artwork created by students, faculty, and even local residents. Former professors Hannah Barnes, Heidi Jensen, Barbara Giorgio, Mackenzie Goodman, Maggie Chambers, and Kristen Reeves all use cartography and maps as part of an art project. Their maps are featured in collections in the library's digital media repository. Art professor Chelsea Becker's students created art collages featuring maps from the library that will be a new DMR collection. And once cataloged, the students will be listed as authors in the library's OneSearch catalog. This bridge between the School of Art and university libraries has been a rewarding liaison experience for myself, but the map collection and all of its users are the critical benefactors. These maps, including this unique one of Christy Woods here on the Ball State campus, are informative and dynamic creations that will be preserved for others to discover and utilize, or simply admire, or perhaps even inspire. As we've reviewed today, the map collection has been immersed and incorporated in schools, departments, and projects around the university. The map collection is a living, working, learning, and storytelling space. The generous donations of these new maps maintain the library's collection as a fresh, thriving, unique, and updated treasure trove. I thought I would close today with my favorite map of Ball State, which was also created by university students in 1978. It's a great example of showing how maps can depict changes over time. Hopefully today provided perspective about incorporating maps and cartography into diverse interdisciplinary fields of study. Liaison outreach is one way to create unique instructional and research teams across campus, devising new ways to reach students using different media as primary sources. But you don't have to use maps in academic work in order to visit the map collection. Feel free to visit and explore this world of maps. The admission is free. And thank you to the staff in University Libraries Metadata and Digital Initiatives Unit for scanning hundreds of maps for the DMR collections, for student projects, and for this presentation. And thanks to all of you for attending.
Melissa, that was incredibly engaging. I was so intrigued by everything. So I was very excited to see your presentation. And now we're going to take a really hard turn and talk about nursing science, which is, everybody's second favorite part of the library. So my name is Karen Harag. I'm the Health Sciences and Human Services Librarian at St. Mary's College in Notre Dame, Indiana. I predominantly work with nursing science. So some institutional context while I discuss what's so we're all on the same page. So St. Mary's College is a Catholic residential women's college. Nursing science is our largest program, and we offer a bachelor in the science of nursing, a master in the science of nursing, and a doctor of nursing practice. So they're all licensure programs. Nursing faculty are from a variety of clinical and educational backgrounds, which of course happens in all departments that we work with in an academic library. But the clinical aspect is unique. So some of our classroom instructors also have a clinical setting that they oversee, perhaps OB or ER, or like medical surgical units. They accompany students when they go into those clinical settings. But we also have faculty who only work in a clinical setting. And we also have a mix of teaching and clinical faculty, which I just described. And our nursing department, in my context at our institution, is currently what we would call a young faculty, meaning that the majority of our tenure track faculty are pre-tenure. So that is our institutional context. And so adding to, this isn't always how the Master of Nursing Science works, but our Master of Nursing Science is what I would describe as a career change program, which means that students already have a bachelor's degree in another field and take this program to study to change over and become a nurse. And so that's how that master's is set up. And so when I was approached to teach my first Master of Nursing Science class, it was the first in their first semester in the program. And so it was their introduction to nursing research. And the faculty was very friendly, very lovely when she approached me to do the instruction, and which is, always what we love. But I kind of had in the back of my mind that it can be a really hard turn for students to go from having a four-year degree in anthropology or economics or any other discipline and then be expected to do research in nursing science, which is a whole different animal. And so I laid out the LibGuide and my guest lecture to show how I read the assignment sheet and therefore how I would approach the assignment. And so I did some pretty bog standard instructional things, talking to them about the entire research process, and talking to them about teaching specific databases, and talking about the question structure of the PICO, which happens in nursing science. And so my objective was to position the students for a successful transition into this program to enable them to begin to think and research like a nurse and to plant a seed of understanding of how this course and assignment would serve as a foundation for a strong career in nursing. I discussed how the assignment fit into the big picture while also giving concrete guidance to navigate the work that was being asked of them. Fortunately, this approach resonated with the faculty. On seeing the presentation in class, the guidance and the resources, she legitimately explained to the class, Karen, you did a lot of work. And I mean, I did, but to me, was pretty standard. The prep and the LibGuide was a lot of work, but like most library instruction, it's worth it to save time so that we, get the whole class in one go, and then individual consultations, individual questions, it's a time saver on our end, and it's more efficient for our time. But I sort of relayed this to her, and she just kept going, addressing her class, saying, do you guys understand what she's done for you? You got the roadmap here. This is going to make your life so much easier. And so the takeaway is that I'm really good at my job. And so you guys can just do that too, and you'll be successful. Would that it were so simple. I had stumbled upon a bit of magic that made things click. What was that magic? It's difficult to say. My theory is that there was professional recognition in our shared objectives and core values. It seems I have the same teaching philosophy as this particular faculty member. Give students the support they need to learn the skills they need, and be clear about the professional context of these skills, and don't needlessly torture them with irrelevant assignments or busy work. So this faculty genuinely cared about her students and about good nurses. But here's the magic bit. She told her friends. I had a fan, and she recommended me to students and faculty alike. When new faculty started arriving the following year, she sent them my way immediately. I know we can't all have this level of cheerleader among our faculty, but we can build rapport by showing up and doing our best work. And so I had tapped into my secret second audience, which opened the door for the next phase, to become a collaborator with the faculty. So I was invited by another MSN program faculty to guest lecture in her course for a new assignment that she was creating as a new faculty member. She would require students to write a scoping review. Now, the nursing and medicine has this mantra, see one, do one, teach one. I was going to have to see one. Of course, I've seen scoping reviews before. And then teach one? I'd never actually written one before. So more on that in a minute. So I went back to my old standby, learning outcomes, core values, and on discussion with the faculty, I quickly realized I had a lot of work to do. First, I needed to figure out what a scoping review actually is, let alone how to research and write one. And I kept on going back to their core value of evidence-based practice. And so as I developed the LibGuide and lesson plan, I wanted to be sure that it facilitated student success on their assignment while also giving them a strong underpinning of the importance of good patient-centered inquiry, which is the bedrock for high-quality nursing practice. Work and research are in service to clinical practice. They seek consensus, generalizability of studies, with the actionable item of improving patient outcomes. Now, a classroom technique that I use involves normalizing academic knowledge making as a clunky process that can be difficult to navigate. To normalize the process of asking for help from the Writing Center and the librarian, I took a strategy from a colleague in the Writing and Tutoring Center on our campus and began sharing with students how their professors use the library as a support service. This addresses library anxiety and attempts to dismiss the myth that students already know how to navigate the academic library. The faculty need help with basic tasks like keyword selection, topic selection, interlibrary loans, discendiary searching, after all, so it's perfectly reasonable for students to seek the same assistance. I used this technique in the lecture on how to write a scoping review, and little did I know that my secret audience of my faculty member was also considering embarking on a review of her own. I taught about evidence-based practice, including our institution uses the Melnick and Fineout-Overholt hierarchy of evidence. It's a rating scale for research methodology that they use, and I demonstrated, I taught it, and so I demonstrated that I had depth of knowledge on it. And, also spoke to students and explained what the different types of reviews are so that they had a better grounding and understanding of where they were going and what they were actually being expected to do. Because a scoping review is a smaller, less time-intensive, less scary, frankly, type of review to write than a larger or more intensive systematic review. And we also addressed the PRISMA, the preferred reporting items for systematic reviews and meta-analyses, and their scoping review extension, which is the PRISMA SCR. And I introduced them to the checklists and support materials that would be most useful for them in their writing, which serves as a template for the review. Reviews, of course, are not mere products like an undergraduate literature review. Formal reviews are as much about process as they are about product. So I broke it down into steps, anticipated barriers and challenges, which I explained and provided resources to navigate them. In working with the faculty, we also eliminated a number of the steps as unnecessary for the student project while still making them aware that this is something that would be done and why it was not being done for this assignment, but would be done professionally in writing. So in essence, I was asked to see one and then teach one, and now I'm doing one. So the faculty member and another nursing faculty member had been considering writing a systematic review of their own, and they approached me to help support and co-author their work on the systematic review, which I quickly identified would actually be better used as a scoping review. These faculty felt that they were capable of synthesizing the literature, but were uncertain in their ability to find all of the relevant studies, stay organized, and avoid tangents, and execute the finer details of the review writing process. The very things I just explained to this group of students how to go about doing. So this is very nursing specific, I will recognize. And so what can you take away for others in different applications and just generally? So I will recognize that I have some very specific aspects of my faculty that are working in my favor. So nursing faculty at St. Mary's are currently mostly pre-tenure, which means they're all looking to publish something, to write and publish. And so they're looking for projects, collaborators, things to write about. There's also a mix of faculty who are largely clinically experienced and still adjusting to formal classroom instruction. And so I'm sure this happens in other departments as well, and across other campuses, but particularly the mix of nursing faculty that we have at our institution right now have spent a solid chunk of their early and mid-career becoming very good nurses. And now they're interested in shifting over into classroom instruction. And some of them don't have educational philosophy degrees. They have a Master of Nursing Science, they have a clinical degree. And that makes them very well equipped to teach nursing science, but they're feeling less well equipped to teach research and to teach writing. And so they're looking to fill that gap. The other thing that's working in my favor amongst this nursing faculty and our clinical faculty is that there's a strong reliance professionally in nursing science and other health sciences on interprofessional practice. And so they are generally accustomed to seeking out experts when their expertise runs its course. And so they are accustomed to having multidisciplinary teams. And so it's very natural for them to say, oh, well, I don't know how to do this. Who does? I'll partner with them. The other thing working strongly in my favor is that nursing science and librarianship do align in a lot of our core values. Nursing science uses evidence-based practice, and so they have a great respect for research and evidence, and they follow the evidence professionally to its natural conclusions. They are very concerned with their hierarchy of evidence. They want to know and understand validation of sources, and they have great respect and reliance on authoritative sources. So it's not a hard argument to make that, well, this is from, the American Nurses Association, and so this is reliable information, and they all nod and say, yes, of course. So there's no arguments there, right? There's no tension there. And because they're so patient-centered, they tend to be a very student-centered faculty. And that, of course, aligns, we're both nursing science and librarianship, I think I would describe as helping professions. We help people in different ways, but we are generally just trying to help people with their needs. And so just to give, I know it's a lot of text, but there's lots of examples. And so I would say when I talk with faculty, I'm genuinely curious and interested. I want to know what they're doing in their classes and what's working and what's not working. And I genuinely want to hear their thoughts and offer advice and connect people with resources. And so I'm not having small talk with the faculty, we're diving a bit deeper. I also made it a point to try and understand their perspective, their core values, their expectations of their students and of their students' research and writing so that I could better support the students, but also so that I could better support the faculty. And so as an outsider to the profession, how I identified many of these core values was by talking with the faculty and students and hearing from them, gathering sort of that unofficial survey, and also by skimming through, both by naturally, when you're helping students find articles, you sort of see the type of literature, but by understanding, what are the common things that they're doing, what are the trends, and also by looking at their course syllabi and their sequencing of courses. When does research happen? How is it being laid out? What do they see as step 1, step 2, step 3 in building these skills up towards their final legacy, and their final projects? And again, because they have interprofessional practice, they are seeking to sort of fill their own gaps in knowledge, but they also really respect when other professionals say, I don't know. And so there's not that sort of stigma of, well, I have to be the expert in everything. And so I found that very freeing when working with my nursing faculty. But I also have been very clear when I do sort of the welcome back to the fall, or hey, spring is coming emails and outreach, just to be very clear and in conversation with them that there are multiple ways that we can partner, and giving them very concrete, explicit. They often will talk about how nurses are very busy. They like concise, direct writing with options. And so by just telling them, I can help you look things up, I can, connect you with examples if you're having this classroom problem. I'm talking with faculty in other departments, and so I can give you examples of how that assignment might look, or these types of things. Having them look at different LibGuides or training specific databases, and the fun one, which is of course the guest lecturing, and sort of leaning into those pedagogical strengths and looking at all of those things so that we can work as complements to each other and fill the need appropriately. And so I think being genuinely interested and trying to understand them has been the core to my success, the key to my success with that. And so, yeah, that's how, in a nutshell, I have engaged with my nursing faculty, and now am collaborating on writing and scoping review, and all of that pretty much from just demonstrating that I know how to do it by teaching their students how to do that very same thing.
That was wonderful, Karen. There's a lot of parallels actually between all of our presentations and experience. So my name is Bradley Johnston, and I actually work with Melissa at Ball State University Libraries. I'm the material librarian. So a little bit about the collection that I support. Our materials library houses approximately 13,000 building materials, including sustainable, innovative, and traditional materials for use in the construction of buildings and landscapes. We support disciplines within the College of Architecture and Planning, as well as courses in the School of Art. Just an example of one of the items in our collection. We have quite a wide variety. We have innovative options like acoustic paneling made from mushrooms, and in this case, a masonry unit made of recycled plastic. Even more exciting is that this company would send you the manufacturing facility in a shipping container to allow you to create blocks out of local, unsorted, unwashed plastic. So just a really creative approach to dealing with the plastics crisis. The library is patterned after collections found in architecture, interior design, and landscape architecture firms. These libraries contain physical samples that professionals use to facilitate the creative process, communicate design intent, and manage project expectations among stakeholders, including clients, builders, tradespeople, and designers. Our library's collection serves students and faculty in various ways, such as illustrating materials, concepts, and assemblies for instruction. It also aids in visualizing these finished projects through material palettes or mood boards. Additionally, it supports exercises and labs focused on materials and building science, all of which are developed with faculty input. Students and faculty often highlight the multisensory and haptic learning benefits, noting that the samples and assemblies can clarify challenging concepts. So the first case that we're going to look at is demonstrating how our collection and services are utilized at an early stage in the curriculum. This takes place during the shared first year, where students learn design thinking and principles before they specialize into architecture, landscape architecture, etc. And this actually took place on the heels of a first year curriculum revision. And as we know, when there are these curriculum revisions, sometimes the details are not always communicated. And so we can sense what is going on and learn more just simply by walking around the building as the students are. And that is, I will say, a continuing theme is I'm very, very lucky to be housed in the building, but many of these same techniques could be applied if you go out to the department and see what the students are engaged in. But this was a bit of a serendipitous discovery. I noticed that the students were taking rubbings of materials throughout the building. And so in talking to them and learning a little bit more about the assignment that was new, I approached instructors who I'd worked with previously and then worked to incorporate the materials from our collection to enhance the exercise, since the collection itself contains a much more diverse range of textures and patterns. A little bit more about the assignment itself. The students are investigating the variation in tone inherent in materials, and then they culminate these studies into larger compositions that integrate rubbings with photos and other media. And so this is an example. The students came into the material collection in the library. And so we see on the left, this is an example of one of the materials, obviously, the aluminum foam. And so this is available in different densities. It reacts really interestingly with light and shadow, and it's made by blowing gas through molten aluminum at different intensities. And so on the right, we see the students embedding these textures into other types of media. Here we have a student using a mat from a garage or a workout area, and they have found that the bottom of it contains this pattern. And so it just kind of shows that a surprising amount of beauty is lying just underneath these utilitarian surfaces that surround us. More examples of various textures and techniques that the students are exploring. So as we know, professors also come up with their own spins and tweaks to assignments as they gain experience in working with their students. And so in this case, students were asked to create landscape graphics out of the original material textures and patterns. So we have an example of the original textures. And then we have the resulting landscape graphics. And I'm happy to report that the professor observed that the landscape graphics that the students created were noticeably more diverse after this exercise than in previous years. As this exercise wound down, we decided to highlight the students' work, and highlighting these collaborations is just a really important aspect. I created this poster. It details the process representing just one of the elements of this larger display. We also asked for student contributions to this display. And so it served to inform faculty administrators about the projects. And the students were very excited to have their work featured, and they would bring their friends and their family when visiting to showcase their work. So it was really cool. So some lessons is try to be attentive. If you can get in the department or physically locate yourself in and around them, see what the activities that the students are engaging. This one, you would think that there would be a clear connection between the materials collection and rubbing of materials, which by the way, we had not engaged in that particular activity. So that was new to us and very interesting. But engaging with those same students and then potentially connecting with the faculty later. Also remaining patient. It's sometimes it takes a while for the faculty to become acclimated to any of these curriculum changes, and they may take a second to reassess and see the value in some of the things that we offer. But in the case of the display, we had many faculty members in different sections actually take us up on including materials from the collection in subsequent times that this assignment was offered. And so, as always, once you start talking to the faculty and students, this ends up cultivating future collaborations. And so we see the students again and again and work with the faculty in different ways, one of which is embedded librarianship. And so this is a really interesting project. I was embedded into a summer studio, and so this was an immersive learning course. So students work for the client is the community, and in this case, it was the Office of Community Development. And the task was to design a transitional housing community made of tiny houses. And so, in addition to the Office of Community Development, various social services professionals were also in attendance on the various presentation phases that occurred during this project. So I had worked with the professor for a number of years, Dr. Sarah Keogh, and she reached out prior to the start of the summer and said that she would need my help due to the nature of the project, the quickened timetable and the smaller studio size. It would be a team effort with everyone closely involved in research, construction detailing, estimating, and evaluation of materials. So during the interim session, I actually tried to fast track the effort, obtaining a lot of the material samples of more economical building materials, such as fiber reinforced paneling and a number of other materials that would hold up to abuse. We knew that these tiny houses would need to be cheap. They would need to be relatively easily maintained, and easy to construct. And so, and also that the materials, if damaged, could be easily rotated out. So I created a pop-up library also of print and electronic resources, had all of these building and research materials available to the students in their studio to maximize their accessibility. And so what we see on the right is sort of what I would consider the authoritative work on this. If you're interested in learning about the design and construction of tiny houses, this is where I would go first. And that is part of this, advocating the value. This came up in the previous presentations, advocating the power of these print and electronic materials to hasten their work. Oftentimes I would go back to this resource and show the students that there are rules of thumb for designing these things. And so ultimately it saves them a lot of time. Here we are during the design phase. We had a very talented group of students. Here we are at a local big box store. We're selecting the materials for the construction of mock-ups. Here we are loading the materials. It's amazing how much a hatchback can transport, and we were frankly very lucky that that is the case. This is presentation day. So here we have a variety of wall assemblies and various facade concepts using primarily salvage materials. The project was presented to, in addition to the Office of Community Development, various nonprofits. Muncie's mayor was there, as well as the building commissioner and the city engineer. And in a particularly proud moment and nerve-wracking moment, frankly. So the city engineer and the building commissioner, I don't know what the odds of this are, but I'm right behind them. And they turn and they have this mini meeting during the presentation, assessing the pricing and timetable and estimating that we had spent all semester developing. And so it was one of these rare glimpses at, your research being tested in real time. And I'm happy and excited to say that our estimates did jive with theirs. And so that was really, really cool. This is an innovative mock-up featuring a variety of habitats for endangered and at-risk species. This student majored in biology, and so not all of the students that were associated with this class were architecture students, which was a really interesting blending of strengths. So based on the success of that studio, the next summer I approached Dr. Zach Michieli about being embedded in another design build studio. In this particular studio, students manage all aspects of the construction project, from design and planning to coordination and execution. This experience really allows the students to gain a deep understanding of the challenges involved in realizing a project, often at a scale and complexity that they haven't encountered previously. Oh, I'm part of this. I'm sorry, I'm right here. For some reason, this photo got moved. So here is an axonometric drawing showing the plan for the sculpture, which has 4 ribs and will rest on a concrete pedestal that allows interaction with the site. Again, we had a pop-up library filled with research and building materials. In addition, I was able to coordinate with a vendor, Roby Decking. They supply sustainable lumber. And so we were able to get 2 pallets of cutoffs. And so this is black locust lumber, and the students were able to build at essentially no cost. At the conclusion of the project, the project was featured on their website as well as social media. So again, the students were very excited about that. And I'm extremely happy. I think everyone was extremely happy because none of the pieces of this entity were longer than 3 feet. So it was quite a feat that we were able to create something so big. And initially it was a little bit bigger than this, but we had to, of course, revise as we were working through it. So the next semester, based on that initial size, the professor and I got together and said we were going to go into a tighter envelope because the construction process and just the sequencing of construction takes a lot longer than you expect, and the students expect especially. And so we were trying to make it easier for the students to manage the logistics and sequencing in addition to the detailing. And so here is an early version of an abstract and simple chipboard mock-up. And so this is also an example of the different materials that the students and faculty work through as the design progresses. So these are 3D printed molds for the cladding panels. The design process uses a variety of materials and techniques in prototyping and construction. And really in the building material industry, we're seeing this push towards customizable additive techniques. And there is a tension between these long established large scale production capabilities and the wants and needs of designers, which would prefer these customizable elements. And so these panel molds were created with much trial and error, let me tell you. And so the one on the top is this very interesting, if you've done any 3D printing, it's TPU rubber, and so it's very rubberized. And then all of the ones under it were slightly different designs. Here shows kind of the complexity of the different materials, fixtures, and components. We see the structure itself, and then the fixtures, and then in the back, these panels, all of which were individually cast. And I must thank, we have an amazing director of fabrication, Colby Gray, who provided assistance at critical junctures. We have a fab lab, and the material library and the fab lab have a strategic partnership, and I think both entities really benefit from this. And so it's a really interesting other component of this, trying to create synergies between complementary units. And that is in a different, it is part of the college, it is not part of the library, but we work very well with them. This is an example of one of the 3D printed panels. So it has a very modern aesthetic. This is the display of the completed work, showing that we went through a number of different processes. The first of which was 3D ceramic printing, which, wow, if you try this, it is a lot more difficult than you expect. Initial estimates were for certain panels, it would be 12 hours for a panel that size, and that was accurate. And so we shifted to casting as a process. Newer ceramic printers exist now that the college has invested in that hopefully will expedite this process for future students. But it was an example of a learning experience for both us and the students. And then this display, it obviously brought the attention of the faculty and students, but also administrators. And so we were lucky enough to win a micro grant for this coming summer. And so again, hopefully the intent is the students will not have to purchase anything out of their own pocket. So some of the lessons, I would say, just be useful and help others get stuff done. Obviously saw in previous, it is an iterative process. And so success can be leveraged into future activities. Advocate for the value of the materials. We're seeing generations that haven't used books the way that maybe some of us did growing up. And so showing that they can be time saving, and a lot of these assemblies and concepts require a lot of different elements to work well together. And so there's few types of media that work as well as a book for illustrating those concepts. And so just advocating for them. And then these deeper interactions allow us to see things in the classroom and make connections that the faculty themselves can't necessarily see. And that is another piece, you as a librarian will have a wildly different perspective than the faculty. And that is an important perspective to relay to the students and faculty, if they're open to it, of course. But just keeping those lines of communication open between faculty and students. Many of the students that you saw earlier come in and again, and I'm advising on one of their thesis as they're graduating this year, and it's just really exciting to see them develop. And then learning alongside them. We can't know everything, the more you know, the more you know how little you know. And so showing the students that you're learning along with them helps them progress and gain confidence as they are going into their professional careers. So thank you so much for allowing me to speak. And if you have any questions or comments, here's my information.
Well, I want to thank Melissa and Karen and Brad. If we have any questions from attendees, feel free to put those in the chat now. We have a few more minutes. We can probably take a couple of questions. As I said at the beginning, if you want to keep up with other trainings from us, the Professional Development Office has a calendar on the State Library's website. And the Academic Librarians of Indiana's Information Literacy Committee will be posting a recording of this and other details about our summer unconference as those unfold. So if anyone has questions, feel free to share now. If not, I want to thank you all for attending. Have a great rest of your day. And again, the panel and I will stay on for a few minutes for anyone who might have questions. Oh, good. We're getting some thank yous from the audience. Awesome. Lisa, I think you can stop the recording.